Hi guys, this is attempt 2 for country. Today is something went wrong because YouTube wanted to update when I was filming all that. So yeah, here we go today with Hungary. So yeah, it's going to be quite a long one considering I've got like 12 pages of scripts at least. First we need to include bibliography, so here we go. As Hungary has a long and rich and diverse history. So here we go, there's evidence that humans came to Hungary during the last ice age, and they've lived by hunting in mammoths and reindeers with stone weapons. And when the ice age ended, there's evidence that we hunted smaller animals. And then about 5000 BC, farming was introduced into Hungary. Although farmers were still using small stone tools. In about 2000 BC they learned how to use bronze. And about 800 BC Greek people in Hungary learned to make iron tools and weapons, and after 500 BC they traded with Greeks, and they also learned to use potter's wheels. And then about the time of Jesus Christ and Romans conquered what is now Hungary, and then they reached the Danube in 11 BC, and in 980 AD they crushed a rebellion of the native people called the Pannons, and the Romans then created a province called Pannonia, and in time Pannonia became fully integrated into Roman society and the empire, and the Romans founded a number of towns that included Pix, Szombathely, Sopron and Buda, and in the early 2nd century the Romans conquered the east of Hungary, which they called Dacia, but by the 3rd century the Roman Empire was also in decline, and Dacia was abandoned in 271 AD, and from the end of the 4th century the Romans withdrew from Pannonia and was overrun by Germanic people. And in the 6th century the Asiatic people called Avars conquered what is now Hungary until the end of the 8th century, and by that time Charlemagne, the leader of France from what is now France, conquered Central Europe including Hungary, and he forced the Avars to accept Christianity. But in 843 the Frankish Empire was divided into 3, and Hungary became part of the eastern third of the empire. Anyway, so then the Magyars came, as the Magyars are descended from the Finno-Ugric people, who were also from the ancestors of the Finns and the Estonians, which we'll get to later, as the Magyars moved west and southwest, and by the 9th century they had begun to raid eastern parts of the Frankish Empire. And in 896, under leader Arpad, they conquered eastern Hungary, and in 900 they captured the western parts, as Hungary became the Magyar homeland. But for decades they continued raiding other parts of like Central Europe and all. But in the early 10th century Magyars suffered some defeats, and finally in 955 Germans under Otto I crushed them at the Battle of Augsburg. Afterwards the Magyars gradually settled down and became what we know to be as civilized. And in the late 10th century Prince Geza invited German missionaries to come and preach Christianity to the people, as Geza himself was baptized but continued to worship the pagan gods. As Geza also wielded the Magyars into a single united people, and until then they were divided into tribes, but Geza turned himself into a powerful ruler, and his son Stephen from 1000 to 1038 continued his father's work, and he confiscated much of the land in Hungary, and he built a network of castles or var across Hungary. And Stephen was the first truly Christian ruler of Hungary, and he founded a number of monasteries, and he was canonized or declared as a saint in 1038-83. After Stephen's death there was a series of succession crises in Hungary, and order was restored by Laszlo I from 1077 to 1095, and in the 11th and 12th century Hungary first became firmly part of Western civilization. as Bela I from 1172 to 1169. He formed the administration modelling that took by the Byzantine Empire, as settlers from Germany and Romania came to Hungary. And in the 12th century, foreign visitors described it as a prosperous country, and furthermore, by the late 12th century, early 13th century, trade flourished with new towns, and new towns were created in Hungary. However, in the early 13th century, Hungary was ruled by Andreas II from 1205 to 1235, and proved to be somewhat incompetent and provoked a rebellion. And in 1222 he was forced to issue a golden bull, and this document safeguarded the rights of all free men in Hungary, and has been likened to the Magna Carta in England. And one clause gave rights to lords to resist the king if he broke the conditions of the bull. But disaster struck in Hungary in 1241, and the Mongols invaded, as the Hungarian army was routed at the Battle of Mohi in 1241, as the Mongols had occupied Hungary for the next year, but they caused devastation, as crops were burnt or left unharvested, and famine obviously followed, as the Mongols also sacked Hungarian settlements, and as a result the population fell substantially. And afterwards there was a slow process of rebuilding, and the last king of the Alpid dynasty was Andreas III from 1290 to 1301, who died childless. And Charles Robert of Anjou was crowned king of Hungary, but until 1310 other men also claimed the throne. But Charles Robert was eventually recognised by all Hungarians. And during his reign, Hungary prospered, as in the 1320s gold was discovered in Hungary, and soon large amounts of gold and silver were exported, and the money raised helped the treasury. And Hungary also escaped the Black Death of 1348 because Hungary was sparsely populated and lived further away from each other and did not spread as nicely. From the line of a Frenchman who described Hungary in 1308, as this Frenchman described it as an empty land. However, in the late 14th century the population rose, and Louis the Great, or Louis I ruled Hungary from 1342, and in 1345 his brother was murdered in Naples, and in 1374 Louis led an army into Italy, and in 1348 they captured Naples, and Louis called himself King of Naples, but was forced to retreat before the Black Death, and the native ruler returned, and the Hungarians tried to regain in Naples in 1349, and then again in 1350 to 52, but with no success. And in 1370 Louis' uncle Casimir, King of Poland, died, and for the short time the two countries were united under Louis' rule. But Louis died in 1382 without an heir, and Poland became a separate realm again in 1386, and Sigismund of Luxembourg became ruler of Hungary, and during his reign the Ottoman Turks became an increasing threat. And in 1354 they took Gallipoli, and after the Battle of Kosovo in 1389 they advanced into the Balkans, and Sigismund fought a series of campaigns against Turk, and in the years from 1390 to 1396 without success, and Sigismund died in 1437. In 1453 all of Europe was shaken by the Turks' capture of Constantinople and ended the Byzantine Empire, with no signs of stopping. But in 1458 Matthias became King of Hungary, and he became known as Matthias the Just because of his fairness, as Matthias was a Renaissance ruler. He was a patron of the arts and of learning, and he also raised a mercenary army called the Black Army, which helped Hungary become strong. And yet when Matthias died in 1490 Hungary declined, as a National Assembly to elect a successor, as they wanted a Diet king. There's a Diet wanted a king whose praise they could hold in their hands. In other words, they wanted a weak king that they could control. So the crown went to Laszlo II. Under him, the monarchy in Hungary grew weaker, and the Black Army disbanded in 1492. And furthermore, the conditions of the peasants in Hungary deteriorated, and they lost their rights to move from one village to another, and the landlords burdened them with more forced labour. Eventually the peasants rebelled, and the rebellion began in 1514, and the Pope called for a crusade against the Turks. Many Hungarian peasants joined. However, the nobility were unhappy about losing so many of the labour force and tried to prevent the peasants from leaving. And those peasants who had already joined refused to disband, and under the leader, Georgi Doza, they rebelled. The peasants attacked the castles and burned manor houses. However, the nobles crushed revolt, and Doza was captured and executed for the rebellion. And as a result of the rebellion, there was a backlash against the peasants in Hungary. And the Diet of October 1514 passed a law condemning peasants to eternal serfdom, as serfs were halfway between slaves and free men. So yeah. And in 1526, the Turkish ruler Suleiman the Magnificent led an army northwards, and the Hungarians met them in the Battle of Mohacs. And on the 29th of August 1526, and the Hungarians were routed and their king was killed. And in September, the Turks took Buda, and most of the Turks then withdrew with their loot, but did leave behind some soldiers to keep fortresses and all. Well, they did not attempt to conquer Hungary any longer. They intended to take it in stages. And from there were two claimants to the throne of Hungary: Ferdinand of Habsburg, Archduke of Austria, and János Szapolyai, as Ferdinand seized western Hungary, and he was crowned Ferdinand I. However, the Hungarian nobles also crowned János king, and Hungary was divided between them. When János died in 1541, the Turkish Sultan took central Hungary, and he made Szapolyai's son ruler of Transylvania, now the easternmost part of Hungary, as it became a principality. Of Transylvania, but was only semi-independent of Turkey, as the Turkish ruled central Turkey directly, and Hungary was divided into three parts until the end of the 17th century. And like the rest of Hungary was rocked by Reformation, and in the 1540s, Protestant doctrine swept Hungary and gained many supporters. However, in the early 17th century, the Catholic Counter-Reformation won many converts, especially in western Hungary. And after the end of the 17th century, Turkish power started to wane, and in 1683 they successfully besieged Vienna, and Austria and its allies turned on the Turks. In August 1887 they crushed the Turks in the Battle of Nagin Harsani, and finally, in 1697 the Turks were routed at Centaur. In 1699 they made peace, but the Habsburgs, ruler of Austria, gained almost all of Hungary. But the Hungarians resented the Habsburgs almost as much as the Turkish, as they resented taxation. And in 1703 the Hungarians rose in arms, and in their war of independence, and lasted until 1711. But the Habsburgs' forces won the day, as they were a bit more superior, and the Hungarians were defeated at the Battle of Trencen on the 3rd of August 1708, and their hopes faded. And by 1711 the Habsburg army was victorious, and the Hungarians accepted the Peace of Szatmár in April. An Austrian emperor agreed to respect the rights of the Hungarian nation and to rule with a Diet. And in the 18th century, Hungary remained more of an agricultural society, with little industry, as the census of 1787 showed. and by then the population of Hungary was 8.7 million. And from the end of the 18th century onwards, internationalism in Hungary grew steadily, as did the Magyar language, culture and history. And during the period of 1825 to 1848 was an age of reform, and the Diet carried out a number of fiscal and economic reforms, and industry began to develop in Hungary at the same time. But in 1848, demands for further reform exploded in revolution, and it began when the French king was deposed, and it triggered demonstrations and demands for reform throughout Europe. In Hungary, the Diet drew up a list of demands in March, and in April, the Austrian Emperor gave in and agreed to 31 new laws passed by the Diet, known as the April Laws, as the was abolished and the vote was given to more people. As Hungary was a constitutional monarchy sharing king with Austria, however, problems arose over the large minorities in Hungary who demanded autonomy from the Magyars, and the Austrians regained control of other parts of the empire like North Italy and Czechoslovakia. And the emperor was then determined to restore the old order in Hungary, and in August 1848 he declared the April Laws null and void. In September, an Austrian army entered Hungary but was defeated in the Battle of Bucharest, and defeated again in April 1849. And in April 1849, the Hungarians, led by Lajos Kossuth, declared Hungary independent, and the Austrians were forced to rely on the Russians for help, as the Tsar sent an army, and the Russians defeated the Hungarians at Temeswar on the 9th of August 1849, as the Hungarian army surrendered on 13th of August 1849, as they followed a period of repression and reprisals. But by 1866, Austria had suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of Prussia, and with their weakness now exposed, the Austrians decided that some reforms were necessary. And in 1867, a dual monarchy was formed, with Austria and Hungary becoming separate states linked by a shared monarchy, and they also shared foreign policy. However, other minorities within the Austro-Hungarian Empire were not given such autonomy. And in the late 19th century, Hungary developed economically, and industry grew very rapidly, although by 1914 Hungary was still a mainly agricultural society, and marshlands were drained for farming, and agriculture increased output and all. And furthermore, the population of Hungary grew to 18 million in 1910, and the percentage of people living in towns increased substantially. Meanwhile, in 1868, compulsory education was introduced for 6 to 12-year-olds in Hungary, and by 1906, a Hungarian named Ferenc Szézy won the first Grand Prix race, and unfortunately by 1914 Hungary was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and became involved in the First World War on the German side. And by autumn of 1918, Austro-Hungary was exhausted, and it was obvious that the war was lost for them. And in October, Mihaly Károlyi led a movement demanding independence for Hungary, and the people demanded Károlyi to be made Prime Minister. And on the 30th of October 1918, they demonstrated wearing astas, so it became known as the Asta Revolution. Károlyi became Prime Minister of Hungary on the 21st of October 1918. However, at the end of the war, Slovaks and remains within Hungary broke away and joined their countrymen. As a result, Hungary lost more than half of its territory. And meanwhile, on the 24th of November 1918, Bela Kun formed the Hungarian Communist Party, and on the 21st of March 1919, Social Democrats in Hungary formed a government with the Communists, and they began nationalising industry and land. However, the nationalisation policy was unpopular, and so were attacks on religion, as Admiral Miklos Horthy, former admiral of the Austro-Hungary Navy formed a national army and opposed the government. And meanwhile, Hungary continued to quarrel with neighbours like Czechoslovakia and Romania, as the communist regime lost all support when the Romanian army marched into Hungary and occupied Budapest, as Kun fled abroad, and his regime collapsed, and they followed a period of reprisals in which many communists were executed. Even after the communists fell from power, Horthy refused to disband his army, and in October 1919 Romanians left Budapest, and on the 19th of November Horthy entered the capital. And elections were held in Hungary in January 1920, and Parliament decreed that the throne of Hungary was vacant, and on the 1st of March 1920 they elected Horthy regent or head of state, and by 4th of July Hungary was forced to sign the Treaty of Trianon with the victorious powers of the First World War, as Hungary lost 2/3 of the territory and about 6% of the population with it. Horthy introduced an authoritarian regime during the 1920s and 30s, and Hungary remained a relatively primitive country. As many people were poor and electricity and running water in houses were luxuries only the rich could afford, kind of thing. And moreover, in the 1930s, Hungary came under the influence of Nazi Germany, and in 1937 a Hungarian Socialist Party known as the Arrow-Cross Party because of its symbol was founded. And in the late 1930s Hungary remained remedied and also took anti-Semitic measures. And while Hitler occupied Czechoslovakia in 1939, Hungary regained some territory lost after the First World War. And in November 1940, Hungary also joined the Tripartite Pact, originally made by Germany, Italy and Japan. And when the Germans invaded Yugoslavia in 1941, Hungary regained even more territory, and in June 1941, Hungary joined the attack on Russia. And subsequently, by December of 1941, Britain declared war on Hungary. However, after the German defeats at Stalingrad and Kursk in 1943, the Hungarian government sought to leave the war, and by September 1943, planned Operation Bibliography and the military occupation of Hungary. And the German Imperial Army entered Hungary on the 19th of March 1944, and a right-wing government was installed as Hungarian Jews were deported and most died in concentration camps. And from 1944 the Allies began to bomb Budapest and other Hungarian cities, and in the autumn of 1944, with the Germans facing defeat, Horthy negotiated an armistice with the Russians, and the armistice was announced on radio. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah?
Okay, she's just watching the iPad down here.
Okay.
We haven't let Mr. Biscuits out the front, so he didn't have to jump. Hopefully he's going to be back in very soon, then we don't let him out again, okay?
Okay.
So we're just finish the box and then I'll give you a shout and we'll get going, okay?
Okay. However, Germans removed Horthy from the Russians' armistice was announced on radio on the 15th of October 1944. However, the Germans removed Horthy from power and replaced him with Frenek of the Arrow-Cross. However, the Russians captured Budapest on the 13th of February 1945, and fighting in Hungary ended on the 12th of April 1945. But before the war ended, a provisional government was formed in Hungary, and in March 1945 it passed a land reform law in which landowners lost most of their estates and land was redistributed. Elections were held in 1945, and Sultan Tilly became president of the new republic as Frenek Nagy became Prime Minister. However, the communists were determined to take power in Hungary gradually and adopted salami tactics, dividing their opponents and eliminating them one by one. And crucially, the Minister of the Interior in charge of the police was a communist named Rajik. He purged the administration of right-wingers, and more than 60,000 officials were removed between in November 1946 and in July 1946. The communists dissolved what they call the Reactionary Association, which included Catholic Youth Association. As the salami tactics continued in 1947, assisted by the presence of Russian soldiers, and some Hungarian politicians went into exile abroad at the time. The communists nationalised industry one by one, and agriculture was collectivised. And in August 1947, the elections were held in Hungary. However, the communists rigged the elections, even though they still only gained 22% of the votes. However, the communists continued the salami tactics, and remaining opponents were removed from power, and finally in 1948 the communists took over Hungary completely, and the president was forced to resign, and the Social Democratic Party was forced to join with the communists as a single workers' party. And the communists introduced a tyrannical regime in Hungary as nationalisation of industry was completed, and church schools were taken over by the state, and many Hungarians were executed or imprisoned by this time. The Stalinist executions were continued throughout the early 1950s, and once they had eliminated the opposition to the party, they kind of turned on themselves, and former Interior Minister Laszlo Rajik was executed in October 1949, and many other people were executed or imprisoned after show trials, and many communists were accused of Titoism, like wanting to be autonomous of the Soviet Union, like Tito, the Yugoslav leader. And when Stalin died in 1953, Rakoski, the Hungarian communist leader, fell from power, and he was replaced by Imre Nagy, and he introduced what he called a new course. Stalinist policies were moderated, and the government reduced investment in heavy industry and invested more in the making of consumer goods. And the forced collectivization of farms ended, and the people of Hungary were allowed a little more freedom, and the terror ended. But by 1955, Nagy fell from power, and Stalinist policies returned. And in July 5th, 1956, Rakoy fell from power, and the party began to backtrack, and people who had early been executed were rehabilitated. Imre Nagy, who had been expelled from the party, was readmitted. On the 6th of October, Rajik was reburied, and many Hungarians turned out to attend his funeral as a protest against Stalinist policies. And soon popular discontent began to boil over in Hungary, and from the 20th of October onwards, meetings were held at universities, and demanded independence from Moscow and free elections. On the 23rd of October, the demonstrations was held in Budapest, and some demonstrators tried to occupy radio headquarters to voice their demands, but the secret police fired at them, which provoked further unrest. As Enogo, the communist leader, appealed to Soviet help, and soon fighting took place between Soviet tanks and ordinary armed people with what is known as Molotov cocktails and whatever weapons they could find. As Nagy was reinstated as Prime Minister of Hungary, but unrest continued and spread to other cities. As Nagy attempted to cooperate with the demonstrators on the 29th of October, the Russians began to withdraw from Budapest. However, they could not simply regroup in the countryside and awaited reinforcements. While on the 1st of November, Nagy announced that Hungary was leaving the Warsaw Pact and becoming a neutral country. On the 4th of November, the Russians attacked Budapest and other cities, and the Hungarian people fought heroically, but the Russians were much stronger, and in a few days they crushed the uprising. But the workers continued to resist and strike, and were held until January 1957, even though there were mass arrests. And In that same time, 200,000 Hungarians fled to the west, and the communists cracked down and began reprisals. And as hundreds of people were executed and thousands were imprisoned, as Nagy himself was executed in 1958. But in 1960s, Janos Kader began a process of gradual and limited reforms, and in 1962 he introduced a phrase, "He who is not against us is with us." As Kader also made some very cautious economic reforms, and as a result of reforms, and Hungary became a relatively prosperous country, as Hungarians had a higher standard of living over people in other communist countries. But in 1980s, things turned sour and Hungary began to suffer